I stood over the stove, turning the baked chicken one last time to get the skin crisp just the way Thad used to like it. The kitchen smelled like memory, cornbread rising golden in the oven, collard greens simmering low with smoked turkey, sweet potatoes bubbling under cinnamon. This was my Sunday rhythm, carved into decades. Even after Thad passed, I kept it going. Said to myself, if I stop cooking, this house gon' forget what family feels like. The lace tablecloth was laid out smooth on the table, hand-stitched from years back, every thread holding on to the laughter and arguments and grace we'd lived through. I smoothed it out one more time, like touching the past. Then the door burst open. Jabari came in loud, his voice filling the whole house like he paid rent on every echo. Sharon followed close, stilettos clicking like punctuation behind him, waving a bottle of wine like it was a trophy. Arya, sweet girl, hung back a bit, set her purse down gentle and came to help without being asked. That's how I know who's still got soul in 'em. We sat, we ate, we laughed some. But I felt it creeping in, something colder than the sweet tea in my hand. They talked round things at first, asking about church folks, Arya's job at the library, Sharon's new business endeavors. Then Sharon said, with that rehearsed smile, Mama Coretta, this food? Classic. You really hold on to the old ways, don't you? Jabari chimed in, grinning like it was a compliment. That's why we gotta modernize you. You don't need to handle bills anymore. Too much stress for your age. I smiled. But it was the kind of smile you give at a funeral when somebody says something foolish. Inside, I was tightening. So that's why they're here today, I thought. Not to eat, but to decide. I looked at Jabari, my boy, my only son, and all I saw was distance. The way he sat upright, sharp suit jacket never even unbuttoned, checking his phone between bites. He used to look me in the eye when he spoke. Now he looked around me, past me. When dessert came, my peach cobbler, still warm, he dropped it. From now on, Mom, he said, like he was announcing the weather, my paycheck goes straight to Sharon's account. She'll manage things better. I didn't drop my spoon. Didn't blink. But Lord, it felt like a slap that came from inside. My fingers clutched the edge of my plate. Manage what? I wanted to ask. Your mama? But I didn't speak. Sharon smiled like she just won something. Jabari poured more wine, like nothing had changed. Inside, I was screaming. They think kindness means silence. They mistake my patience for weakness. So I stood up. Didn't say a word. Just picked up my plate, walked it to the sink, and washed it myself. That broke every rule in this house. We eat together. We end together. That's how I raised them. I wiped my hands slow. Folded my cloth napkin tight. Walked past them while they kept eating. Arya caught my eye. Grandma, you okay? I touched her hand. Just a little tired, baby. Some things don't taste the same anymore. I folded the lace tablecloth, slow and sure. That table didn't deserve her tonight. Later, in my room, I sat on the edge of my bed and opened my drawer. There he was. Thad, in that old Polaroid, smiling like he knew something I didn't. You see your son, Thad? I whispered. He don't remember nothin'. Not the nights we scraped pennies. Not the times I sewed his shirts so he wouldn't go to school looking poor. He forgot the hands that built his tomorrow. The tears came, but I swallowed them like cold coffee. Bitter and necessary. My phone buzzed. I picked it up. Joint account authorization, pending signature. I stared at it. The heat in my chest spread up my neck. He didn't ask. He acted. Like I was some obligation. A name on a form. I set the phone down. If they want to manage my life, I said out loud, they gon' find I ain't done living it yet. The house was too quiet. Not peaceful, quiet like something had gone missing. I woke up to that silence and sat on the edge of my bed, waiting to hear Aria's light steps down the hall, the hum of her brushing teeth, anything. But the house held its breath. The guest room door was open. Just barely. I pushed it wider and stood in the doorway. Empty. Not a bag, not a sock, not a note. Just the scent of her lavender lotion still lingering in the air. She hugged me Sunday night before heading to bed, tight, warm, like she always did. Told me, "Love you, Grandma," and I kissed her forehead. She didn't say a word about leaving early. Didn't feel like her. But maybe she wasn't the one who made that call. I stood there longer than I needed to. People don't always say goodbye when they've been told not to come back. That thought slipped in like a draft through a cracked window. I told myself maybe she had an early class. Maybe Sharon needed her. But deep down, I knew something wasn't sitting right. After fixing myself some tea, I started cleaning the living room, wiping down tables, folding blankets, just moving to keep my mind from thinking too loud. That's when I saw it, Jabari's tablet, tucked into the couch cushions like it had been forgotten in a hurry. I picked it up, planning to place it on the entry table. Before I could, the screen lit up on its own. A voice message from Sharon. I should have turned it off. I know that. But I didn't. The tablet blinked, and her voice came through sharp and smug. I told you we can't let her have access to any joint accounts. She's sweet, but she's not smart. You said yourself, she wouldn't even know where to look. I stopped folding. My hand stayed wrapped around the edge of the throw blanket like I was holding on to something steadier than air. She wasn't whispering. She wasn't hesitant. She sounded like a woman organizing her closet, calm, efficient, dismissive. I sat down, not because I wanted to, but because my legs weren't agreeing with my heart. This is how they talk about me. Not with anger. Not with cruelty. Just convenience. Like I was something they were managing. Not someone they loved. Later that afternoon, I heard the screen door creak. I looked up from the kitchen window and saw Sharon walking toward the house, Aria trailing behind. They came for something. I already knew it wasn't for me. Sharon barely looked at me. Her voice was tight, polite. Aria forgot her headphones. Before I could respond, Aria leaned into me and whispered, "Grandma, I heard Mommy say you're too old to fight back." I smiled. It didn't reach my chest, but I gave her one. Ran my hand gently over her curls. Old don't mean quiet, baby. That moment rewired something in me. The rage and the love, they tangled, formed something sharper than either on their own. After they left, I walked the house slow. My house. I touched framed photos, me and Thad with young Jabari in front of the old Buick. My hands skimmed over old bill envelopes, journals with prayers I'd written through nights I couldn't sleep. I remembered Thad telling Jabari, "A man don't run from hard. He faces it. Owns it." And I realized Jabari learned that. But he buried it under suits, smiles, and Sharon's whispers. I thought about all the women I've known, my mama, my sister Lula, Miss Geneva next door, women who got smaller in their own homes till they weren't more than shadows at family reunions. They smile in your face while drawing the chalk around your presence. It wasn't that they thought I was ignorant. They were counting on me staying trusting. Not today. I called the bank. Kept my voice calm. Asked them to walk me through the pending joint account. They did. Then came the shock, another account had been opened in my name. Only this one? It gave someone else power of attorney. Limited my access. Like I needed permission in my own name. I asked them to mail me everything. All of it. Then I got in my car, drove down to the same lawyer Thad and I had gone to years ago when we made our wills. Didn't call first. Didn't need to. Some business don't wait for appointments. By the time evening rolled around, I was home again. I set the dinner table. 3 plates. Mine and theirs. Same way I always had. When the knock came, I didn't flinch. Sharon and Jabari walked in all cheer and performance. Holding another bottle of wine like they were bringing peace offerings. I smiled. Same chair, same table. They sat, laughing about traffic, pretending Sunday never happened. Then I leaned forward. Calm. Still smiling. I heard what y'all said, I said slow. You didn't think I'd understand. That was your first mistake. Jabari called on a Thursday afternoon. His voice was smooth, too careful. Mama, we just want to talk things out. Like family. That tone, sweet on top, hollow underneath. I'd heard it before, back when he was a boy trying to confess halfway. It's the same voice folks use when they've already made their decision and just want you to nod along. I told him I'd come. My words were calm, but inside, my guard was up. Thaddeus used to say, when people invite you to fix something they broke, what they really want is to see how much you'll let slide. The drive to their house was quiet. The streets of their suburban neighborhood all looked the same, fresh lawns, smiling mailboxes, sameness painted in beige. It felt too polished, like the kind of place where people hide their mess behind clean fences. I parked in the driveway, took a slow breath, and said to myself, keep your peace, but don't hand it over. Sharon opened the door before I even knocked. That told me everything. Her perfume hit first, too strong, like she'd sprayed confidence to cover guilt. Mom, she said, smiling too wide. I'm so glad you came. Let's clear the air, okay? The living room looked staged, candles lit, coffee steaming, everything perfect except for the energy. Aria's laughter was faint upstairs, Sharon quickly said, she's doing homework, before I even asked. That was their way of keeping her out of sight and out of earshot. I noticed the papers on the coffee table, manila folders, neat stacks, a pen set on top like bait. I didn't sit right away. Instead, I looked around, slow and steady, claiming my space without saying a word. Jabari walked in, trying on a smile that didn't fit. Hey, Mama, he said softly. We've been worried about you. You seemed upset last time. Upset. That's what they called it. Not betrayed, not disrespected. Just upset, like I'd dropped a glass of water instead of being cut by it. He gestured for me to sit. I didn't. I just said, go on. He folded his hands. We just want to make sure you're comfortable, Mom. You've done so much for us, it's time you let us take care of things. Sharon leaned forward, voice sugary. You shouldn't have to deal with stress anymore. You can just relax. We'll handle the bills and everything else. I nodded once. They thought that was agreement. It wasn't. Inside, I was quiet, but my thoughts weren't. They didn't come to apologize, they came to dress up control and call it care. I glanced at the paper again. If this is about trust, I said, why is my name written under your account number? Their smiles wavered. Jabari rubbed his temple. It's just legal formality. It helps us protect your interests. Sharon nodded quickly. Exactly. It's just efficiency. You know how things are these days. I let a small smile form. Oh, I know exactly how things are. Then, something clicked on the coffee table, Sharon's phone on speaker. A man's voice chimed through, cheerful and businesslike. Hey there, Jabari. So Mrs. Montague already agreed to transfer authority, right? I just need her confirmation. My chest went still. My face didn't change. But I could feel the heat crawl under my skin. Jabari froze. Sharon blinked in fake surprise. Oh! I thought she knew you were on the call. That's when I realized this wasn't a meeting. It was a performance. And I was supposed to play the fool. I leaned back, looked straight at the phone, and said, I haven't signed anything. Not today. Not ever without my lawyer. The advisor cleared his throat, apologized softly, and hung up. The silence after that stretched so long you could hear the tick of the wall clock. Jabari's eyes darted to Sharon. She crossed her arms. Mom, you're reading too much into this. We're just trying to make sure you're safe. Safe from what? I asked. My own name? No one spoke. I took off my gloves, reached into my purse, and pulled out Thaddeus's ring. It was old, heavy, the gold dulled from years of wear. I set it on the table gently. Your father bought this house with his hands, I said. Mine fed it with every meal. Don't you stand there and tell me who built what piece. Jabari looked down, his jaw tight. For a second, I saw the boy I raised, the one who used to look sorry before his pride got in the way. Sharon broke the quiet, voice sharp. Mom, this is unnecessary. You're being dramatic. We just don't want someone taking advantage of you again. I looked at her and smiled, but it wasn't friendly. The only scam here, I said softly, is when love starts coming with fine print. Her face stiffened. Jabari started pacing, muttering something about me not understanding modern finance. I didn't bother replying. Some things don't deserve explanations. When I finally stood to leave, Sharon's tone turned falsely sweet again. At least stay for lunch. I made that cornbread you like. I shook my head. I've had my fill. As I walked toward the door, I saw movement at the top of the stairs. Arya, peeking down, eyes big as moons. She'd heard it all. I smiled at her, just a flicker, to let her know I was all right. Outside, the sunlight hit hard. I sat in my car, let the engine idle. For a moment, I just breathed. They think I'm walking away beaten, I whispered to myself. But I've already started gathering proof. I arrived home just as dusk was softening the edges of East Point. My little house still stood strong, windows glowing with warm light, the front porch quiet except for the creak of my own steps. I dropped my keys in the bowl by the door and took a slow moment to breathe the familiar air. Inside, I went straight to my filing cabinet. Years of bills, statements, wills, receipts, papers I had folded and stacked and tucked away, trusting that the history they held would always belong to me. Tonight I would see whether that trust had been misplaced. In one folder I hadn't touched in months, marked Legacy Plan, I found something so cold it made the hair at the back of my neck lift. A power of attorney document bearing my name. But I never signed it. Not ever. My signature sat there, slanted, almost perfect, but wrong. The date, 6 months ago. I sat, trembling slightly. I held the paper in front of me, compared the looping letters with my signature on my checkbook. The curves and strokes were close, but not mine. Someone gambled that I'd never inspect the fine print. Betrayal wrapped in paperwork. I drove to Ms. Alma's house, not far, but far enough to let my thoughts simmer. Ms. Alma had been a legal secretary, church friend, someone I trusted more than most. When I showed her the document, she stared, nodded slow. "Honey, this wasn't your hand," she said, voice firm but soft. I felt a presence shift. Someone believed me. She offered to connect me with legal aid, walked me through what this meant for elder abuse laws. I didn't cry, I just listened, gripping the paper tighter. They gonna learn today who they raised. Back at home, I opened my laptop. I logged into my joint account, still allowed. Then I clicked through transaction after transaction, small withdrawals, account management fees, maintenance charges. Each postmarked the day after Sharon visited, coffee, hugs, laughter. The numbers added up, over $8,000 in 5 months. Each withdrawal was a notch in their plan. They weren't just stealing. They were buttering me up before the blade dropped. I printed the documents, authorization forms, bank transfers, the forged POA. I labeled each folder, fraud, authorization, transfers. Locked them in my fireproof safe. This wasn't show business, this was preparation. That evening, I called Ms. Alma again. Her voice trembled a little. "You sure you want to open this door, Coretta?" My voice was steady. That door opened the moment they tried to lock me out. Later, I received a voicemail from Aria. "Grandma, I think they know you're looking into things. Be careful." Her voice shook. My face hardened, not fear, but resolve. Sunday morning came quiet, still. The kind that slips in without knocking. I stood in front of my closet longer than usual, not because I didn't know what to wear, but because I knew exactly what I wanted to say without saying a word. I chose navy blue. Clean lines. Modest, but sharp. My mother used to say, sometimes how you dress tells folks whether to lie to you or respect you. I was aiming for the latter. Walking into church alone, I felt the air shift. I wasn't hiding anymore. Folks stopped me with warm hugs, long looks, that kind of gentle pause people give when they see something's changed but don't quite know how to ask about it. Deacon Ray gave me that extra firm handshake. Ms. Lillian said, "You look good, baby." I nodded and smiled. I felt held. And that did something to a heart that's been bleeding in silence. The choir had just started the second song when I saw them, Jabari and Sharon, slipping into the pews late, eyes darting, posture tight. He wore that smile he practices in the mirror. She wore sunglasses like she was hiding from light. I didn't look their way again. Didn't have to. Just sat tall, hands folded on my lap, voice steady when I sang. Let them feel my presence without needing my permission. After service, people slowly poured into the parking lot. I moved toward my car, steady and sure. Sharon caught up behind me. Her tone was honey-coated but the words stuck like needles. "What are you trying to prove, showing up like this?" I turned, smiled with just my mouth. That I'm not ashamed of my name. Or the truth it carries. She glanced around, noticing the ears within earshot. She lowered her voice. "This doesn't need to be public." "Neither did the lies," I said. Jabari walked up then, playing peacekeeper. "Mama, we don't want this to turn into a spectacle." I looked at him, not as my son but as a man who had stood silent while someone else did the dirty work. "You had a choice," I said, "and now it's my turn." People were watching. Not loud, not close, but enough. A few heads turned, a few footsteps slowed. I wasn't yelling. I was naming. I took a breath. Then came the warning. If either of you touches another dime of mine, expect a lawyer at your door before nightfall. Sharon scoffed, half laughing. You're being dramatic. Jabari looked. Cracked. Not broken, but not whole. Like he wanted to believe he'd done right by silence. I faced him directly. I birthed you. But I won't bend to be broken. Not again. That hit. I saw it. In his eyes. Somewhere deep, where little boys used to believe their mama was the safest place on earth. They walked away, stiff and quick, whispering something between them. I didn't chase. Didn't flinch. As I stood there, breathing slow and steady, Mrs. Henrietta walked up and took my hand. She'd been sitting in the third pew for 40 years, sharp as ever. You handled that with dignity, she said. If you ever need someone to speak on your behalf, you let me know. I didn't cry. But my hand didn't let go of hers. Other folks passed by, nods, soft smiles, a subtle shift in how close they stood. It wasn't pity. It was recognition. Sometimes, the world don't go cold, it just waits for you to stand back up before it warms you again. Later that evening, I sat at my desk and updated my will. Jabari and Sharon were removed as financial executors. No bitterness in my fingers, just clarity. I wrote a letter too. Not to punish. To protect. Let this be the last time my love makes me blind to the harm it shelters. I sealed everything, double-checked it, locked it away. The sky was turning dark when the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Arya, standing alone, hair a little messy, eyes wide and wet. They're planning something, she whispered. I wasn't supposed to hear it. I didn't blink. I didn't panic. I pulled her in gently and closed the door behind her. Then it's time I stopped playing defense, I told her, holding her close. Arya's voice woke me just before midnight, soft, shaken, urgent. She slipped into my room, eyes wide, shadowed by fear. I offered her a hug, held her tight, whispered peace until her trembling slowed. She finally spoke. Grandma, I overheard them. They planned to forge a power of attorney, take my grandma's pension. Time stopped. I felt every year in my bones, the quiet years, the labored prayers, the small betrayals that stack like bricks. My lips pressed together, I nodded. I called Ms. Darnell right then. Her assures were cautious, no filing shows yet. But we must prepare. I'll draft countermeasures. I placed my hand on an old family photo, Thad, Arya, Jabari, mirrors of a simpler time. Tears pinched me. They think I'm soft. They don't know how deep quiet rage can go. Later, I got in my car and drove straight to Jabari's home. No stopping. No forgiving. No weakness. When I walked in, I laid down the folder, each page clean, notarized, stamped. Documents meant to protect me. Legal protections I never wanted to need. Sharon sneered, crossing her arms. You always making something bigger than it needs to be. Jabari looked torn, his face showing him cornered. Momi didn't think. I cut him off. You didn't think, so you conspired. You can't gaslight someone who's already lived through fire. Anger trembled in my voice, not loud, but lethal. Inside the house voices rose. A neighbor peered out a window, curtains shifting. Emotions overflowed the walls we built. Sharon accused me of turning my son against her. You're manipulative, she spat. I held steady. No, Sharon. You taught him greed wrapped in loyalty. Jabari's voice cracked. You always trying to control everything, just like always. I answered calm, but sharp. No, son. I finally control what's mine. Then I laid down boundaries. Joint accounts frozen. Will updated. Legal actions pending. I handed him the letter, printed, signed, an official disinheritance clause. My chest burned. It felt like severing a part of myself. But some rot can't be saved, you must cut to heal. I walked out without slamming the door. My silence was louder than any shout. That night at home, I let grief come. I opened old letters Jabari wrote as a child, full of I love you, mama, simple, honest. I carried them to the fireplace. One by one, the papers curled in tongues of flame. Ceremony, not destruction. I raised a man, not a monster, I whispered. And the monster? He learned elsewhere. Around midnight, there was a knock. Arya stood there, tears tracking down her cheeks. They're saying I'm unstable, she said. They want to take everything now. I stood, looked at her. Then let them come. I'm not afraid of ghosts anymore. I spent the whole afternoon sitting in my study, papers spread across the table like old wounds reopened. Bank records, forged forms, transfer receipts. Every lie had a date. Every betrayal had a number. The lamp cast a yellow light over it all, steady and unflinching, like me. A letter had come earlier that morning. No return address, just my name typed neatly in black. Inside, Sharon's handwriting curved across the page. She called it a misunderstanding, but her words told on her. We only meant to streamline things, Mama Coretta, it said. Jabari thought it would be easier if we handled it quietly. Quietly. Like theft whispered through silk. Thaddeus used to tell me, integrity ain't what you show people. It's what you do when they ain't watching. I pressed that letter flat on the table and breathed through the ache in my chest. They forgot where they came from. They forgot whose blood built that roof. In the bottom drawer of my desk, I found something I hadn't looked at in years, a manila envelope labeled trust documents. Inside was a letter Thaddeus had written before he passed, along with a copy of the original deed to our house. He had made a separate trust in my name, one meant to protect me should Jabari ever fall on hard times. But the latest version, one updated by my son, had my name scratched out. In its place, Sharon's neat signature. I traced my husband's handwriting with my thumb. They didn't just steal from me, I whispered. They rewrote our history. I made copies of every paper, clipped them together, and placed them in a blue folder marked evidence. My heart didn't race, it beat slow, strong. The kind of rhythm you find right before a storm hits. That evening, I invited them over. Said it was time we talked as family. They came dressed for peace, Sharon smiling too wide, Jabari carrying that fake calm of a man hoping the lie might still hold. We sat around my table, the same one I used to serve Sunday dinners on. The air was heavy, like the house itself was holding its breath. I began softly, I found something. Two things, actually. Jabari looked at Sharon first, not me. Guilt always looks for confirmation before it finds courage. I discovered the forged power of attorney, I said, my tone steady. And I also found a letter from your father, one you both tried to erase. Sharon crossed her legs, arms folded. Mom, this is unnecessary. You're making a scene. I smiled faintly. Truth ain't a scene, sweetheart. It's a light. And the thing about light, it don't need permission to shine. Then I unfolded the letter, reading her own words out loud. The room went still. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. My calmness did the cutting. When I finished, I placed the letter beside the trust deed, showing both her handwriting and Thaddeus's. Sharon's face drained of color. Jabari's lips parted, but no sound came out. You erased your father's work, I said quietly. You thought you were protecting a future. What you did was bury his honor. Sharon reached across the table, tears glistening. Mama, we were trying to keep things organized. I leaned back. Apologies born from exposure aren't repentance. They're strategy. My voice wasn't bitter, just tired. The kind of tired that comes after carrying a family too long on your back. I stood up, smoothing my dress. Here's what's going to happen. The trust will be restored in full. Legal documents are already filed. Every fraudulent signature accounted for. If you try again, you'll answer not to me, but to the court. Jabari's jaw tightened. You'd do that to your own son? I'd do that to anyone who forgets how to be one, I replied. I walked to the doorway, leaving them in silence. The sound of their breathing was louder than any argument could have been. In the hall, Kendrick was waiting, my grandson, quiet but watchful. He looked up at me. Grandma, what happens next? I rested my hand on his shoulder. Now, baby, we press on. We don't stop. They'll learn what line they crossed. As I turned, I caught sight of Mrs. Henrietta standing just beyond the porch. She must have heard everything. Her eyes met mine, no judgment, just knowing. That night, as I locked away the documents in my safe, I thought of Thaddeus again. How he used to say, sometimes God lets a storm come through just to wash away the dirt. I smiled, small and sure. Let it rain. I woke the next morning with my eyes swollen, the echo of last night's confrontation still humming in my mind. My limbs ached, not from fatigue, but from carrying grief and purpose side by side. The walls in my house felt thinner, like they were listening. My phone rang, Ms. Darnell. Her voice was soft but firm. Your trust has been temporarily restored. The pension account is safe for now. But Sharon's gone public, she's circulating rumors. Be ready for pushback. I closed my eyes and let that settle. Protection under court orders, yes, but reputation is fragile, easily bruised. I sat at my kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of coffee gone cold. I thought, peace ain't quiet. Sometimes peace means standing firm while storms swirl around you. Kendrick knocked gently. He entered with Gia close behind, his friend who runs the community center in South Memphis. They looked at me, nervous, hopeful. Gia straightened her shoulders. Mama Coretta, I've been pushing the forum organizers. You should speak. Your story, people need to hear how this plays out in real life. I sighed. A tired widow's story, who wants that? Kendrick nodded. The ones who feel stuck. The ones who think silence is safety. You standing changes that. They pressed me. I thought about all the women I knew, their stories unsung. They tried to silence me. I would speak where the silence had roots. By late morning, the community center buzzed. Folding chairs were set up in rows, a dusty podium at the front. It looked worn but sturdy, much like the folks filing in. Black elders, neighbors I'd seen at church ladies with purses, men in caps, folks from the union. Whispers passed around, that's her, I ain't believing it, she's got guts. I sat near the back, heart steady, watching faces. Some curious, some doubtful. I thought of Thaddeus, of all he taught me about truth not needing polish. When they called me to speak, I rose slowly, walked to the podium. I touched the wooden edge like it carried stories too. I began, our stories ain't tidy. They're stained. But they're ours, and they deserve to be heard before they get buried. I spoke of betrayal, I spoke of trust broken like glass. I spoke of the man who wrote a trust in my name. I spoke of the forged documents, the hidden transfers, the threat that my legacy might vanish. My voice trembled once. Then it steadied. I said, I ain't a victim. I'm the chapter they thought they could tear out. I'm still here. The room went quiet, heavy. Some gasped. Others nodded. A few tears leaked. In that moment, a figure stood behind me, Mr. Leon, an old friend of Thaddeus. He walked forward, cleared his throat. I've held on to what Thad left, letters, deeds, things they tried to erase. I bring them to her now. He handed me an envelope. The room stirred. He said, Thaddeus always said you held that house together. It's time somebody held you. I took the envelope with shaking hands. I opened it, trust documents, handwritten letters, proof that my legacy was rightful. Strength flooded me, not pride, but clarity. I gripped Mr. Leon's hand. The crowd stirred, voices lifting softly behind me. I closed my speech, let them erase history. But they can't erase truth. I did not come here begging. I came to reclaim. The applause came slow, strong. I stepped off the podium surrounded by nods, hugs, silent support. That night, in my study, my laptop glowed open. I found an email from a blocked sender, photos of me entering the center, captions calling me mentally unstable elder seeking attention. A smear campaign in pixels. I exhaled, closed the laptop gently. Let em post, I said to silence. I've only just begun. I walked into that courthouse slow, but steady. My shoes clicked against the tile floor like a ticking clock. Kendrick on one side, Ms. Darnell on the other. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. Sharon sat across the aisle, face stiff, eyes ducking from mine. Her lawyer whispered fast, stalling, reaching for straws. But I'd brought truth, and truth don't stutter. The judge didn't take long. Between Mr. Leon's documents and witness statements from the community forum, the ruling came down like clean linen hung out to dry, clear, crisp, final. Full pension reinstated. Sharon legally barred from accessing anything of mine ever again. I didn't celebrate. I just sat there, back straight, hands in my lap. My eyes burned, but I didn't cry. I wasn't proud. I wasn't angry. I was still. On the ride home, Kendrick didn't say much. Just kept one hand on the wheel, one on my file box. I rested my palm on it, not for comfort, but to remind myself it was over. That evening, I went through a drawer I hadn't touched in years. Old letters. Birthday cards. One from Thaddeus, back when we were dating, corny handwriting and all. I found a picture of us on the porch, him holding a hammer, me holding his shirt collar, laughing. I placed the photo back on the shelf. Not because I forgot what came after, but because I remembered everything before. I thought I understood my children, I whispered. Maybe I never did. But I understand myself now, and that'll do. I didn't light a candle. Didn't pour a drink. Just sat still with it. A few days later, the community center held a cookout. Nothing fancy, folding chairs, paper plates, kids with sticky hands. The air smelled like grilled ribs and baked beans. Gospel music played low over a Bluetooth speaker. They called my name. Gave me a little certificate, said thank you for your strength. But the part that stayed with me? The women who hugged me tight and said, "You helped me find my voice." One sister looked me square in the eye and said, "You made me tell my daughter no for the first time in 20 years. Kendrick brought his girlfriend, Maya. She hugged me, eyes kind. "You raised a good man," she said. That didn't come from nowhere. Later, Gia stood by the podium, tapping her glass. "We've decided to name the new library wing after Ms. Coretta Maynard. Because books should live where bravery stands." They asked if I wanted to say something. I thought for a second. Then nodded. I pulled a folded sheet of paper from my purse. It was a poem I'd written in pieces, at night, between battles. I stepped to the mic and read slow. "Let my voice be heard before I'm gone. Not because it's polished. Not because it's sweet. But because it's mine. Let these lines be the bruise and the balm. Let them stand before the silence swallows us whole." Nobody clapped right away. Some cried. Some just sat still. And that was enough. Later that night, Kendrick showed me his plans. He was starting free community classes, how to protect your estate, how to spot elder fraud. I watched him talking to neighbors, printing flyers, helping a woman fill out forms. And I thought, legacy ain't always land or a will. Sometimes it's what you stand for when the storm comes knocking. What Sharon and Jabari did. It didn't vanish. But it didn't own me anymore. Even the memory of Jabari, how he chose his wife's greed over his mother's dignity, it no longer sat like a bruise. Just a scar. Healed, but real. Maybe loving them, I thought, means letting them grow in ways you don't always understand. I turned in early that night. The air was quiet. I reached for Thaddeus's old Bible to put it back in the drawer when something fell out. A letter. Unopened. Yellowed with time. I unfolded it slow. "If you're reading this," it began. I didn't get to say what I should have. My hands trembled. I didn't read further. Just pressed it to my chest. Outside the window, the moonlight spread across the rug like a soft promise. "Some things," I whispered, "I may never fully know. But I'm still standing. And that'll do."